Now, if new government figures are to be believed, it would seem schemes like the Human Library may well be necessary. The statistics reveal that the number of hate crimes recorded by police has doubled in 5 years, and some people believe the problem could be even worse, as a recent survey suggests 70% of people wouldn't report a hate crime. So, are we becoming more hateful? Or, as some suggest, are we too quick to classify offences as hate crime? Well, here to discuss these issues are journalist Miriam Francois, baker and broadcaster Rav Bansal, writer Fraser Myers, and rejoining us is journalist and commentator Dawn Neeson. Well, Fraser, these figures are shocking, aren't they? Hate crime, well, it's doubled.
No, it hasn't. I mean, if you actually read and dig into the Home Office report, what it says, it makes very clear that these increases, the main driver of these increases is down to improvements in reporting. Actually, if you look at other figures that are available, if you look at the crime survey for England and Wales, that says that hate crime has fallen by 40% over the past decade. If you look at the number of people convicted of hate crimes, according to the Crown Prosecution Service, that actually peaked in 2015-16, before the EU referendum, ironically. Every year since then, it's been falling, so it's gone from around...
Are you saying hate crime isn't a problem?
I'm saying
it's decreasing?
It's a problem, of course it's a problem.
Is it decreasing in your eyes?
It is, in my view, it's decreasing, or perhaps we can't necessarily get a handle on the figures. The problem with the figures, with this 100,000 figure, this, doubled in 5 years...
But we're not a more hateful society.
We're definitely not a more hateful society.
Miriam, what would you say to that?
I mean, I think the same report also says, and there is certainly a caveat about increases in the number of people who are reporting hate crimes, which is a positive thing. And we do have to say that that signifies a shift in climate, that people feel that they can come forward and that those hate crimes will be taken seriously. But it does also say in the report that that probably reflects a real-world increase in the number of hate crimes. And look, we just need to look around us. We need to look at football. We need to look at recent studies in higher education, where over a quarter of students say that they're experiencing racism. The recent Guardian report, 2/3 of ethnic minorities in this country say that they've experienced racism. I don't think that there's anything hugely helpful about debating whether there is or isn't a great increase in racism. I think maybe we need to just talk about how we need to tackle the fact that it clearly is a significant problem. Yeah, Dawn, it clearly is a significant problem, whether you look at the figures or not. No, which figures you can compare? Some figures that say it's not so much, and others, and then you can criticise those reports by saying they're not recorded in the right way.
Of course.
But anecdotally, it would appear that we are more divided and more hateful.
I think we are certainly more divided as a country, and I think, obviously, politically as well. There's lots of evidence to prove that. However, with these hate crime figures in particular, I do worry that they are muddying the water. You're talking about racism, but some of the hate crimes now that are being included and logged and registered as hate crime are detracting from proper hate crime. I mean, sort of like, trans hate crime has risen 37%. Now, you can debate the figures all you want, but some of the... What, are you saying it's fine to... No, I'm not. I'm not saying it's fine to hate anybody. In an ideal world, nobody would hate anybody else, but we don't live in an ideal world. And so, there was a poster defining the word woman put up, and that was defined as a hate crime. So how is being a woman sort of a hate crime? I don't understand that, and I do think we are muddying the waters of like Stephen Lawrence type hate crime with some other issues.
That's a small part of hate crime, a much bigger picture. I mean, Rav, why is hate crime... Why is it significant? Why should we be singling out certain crimes in a certain way and other crimes in a different way? Why is hate crime special?
Because when you are looking at a hate crime, you're not just looking at that individual's experience. You're looking at the way someone responds to an entire community. So if a crime is committed against an individual based on their ethnic background or their sexuality, they can commit that same crime to somebody else who belongs to that group too. So I think it is definitely important to look at the bigger picture.
But, Rav, I mean, God forbid, if someone singled you out and attacked you because of the colour of your skin or your sexuality, but a similar crime took place against an elderly woman, how can we say, oh, well, that one was worse and this one was better?
We're not saying that one is better than the other or worse than the other, but I think if you're going to target someone based on the fact that they have a different skin colour, what's stopping that person from attacking another person who has that same skin colour?
I think
Fraser, how would you respond to that?
Well, I think we all know in our gut that, racist crime just feels worse to us, and I think that's true. I don't think we want to have a competing sense of victimhood here, but I would just push back against this idea of whether it matters about the statistics. We're talking about crime and the law here. You know, facts matter, trends matter.
Yeah, but the point is, you're throwing some statistics, other people are throwing different ones, and
No,
they contradict if you look at them like that. So we can't just go with your statistics.
No, sure, that's fine. But the problem is that we do have to, you know, have some understanding of what's going on. And the way that I have a problem really with the way that these statistics are used. But for instance, you know, when we say that hate crime is doubling, or when we say that hate crime is, you know, exploding, there is a kind of political. That can be a problem, because then those are used to call for censorship of the internet. People use those figures to say, for instance, that there is something hateful about Brexit. It's used to demonise ordinary voters. So, you know, we do have to be careful about these figures. And
some figures point to a little spike when say Brexit, or when there's a terror attack. There is a spike in hate crime. So
well, again,
it depends which figures. I mean, I don't want to focus too much on the figures.
Sure, but...
OK.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, there have been spikes around certain incidents. And, for example, we know that after the Christchurch shootings in New Zealand, where there was an attack on the mosque, there was an almost 600% increase in hate crimes against Muslims in this country. I mean, I think if you're an ethnic minority in this country now, it's difficult for people to argue against the reality that you are experiencing more incidents of prejudice in your life. Everybody I know would say that's true, and I think it is also backed up by the figures. But to come back to your point, I think, about the difference with hate crimes, the difference with hate crimes is that the individual perpetrating believes that they're acting on behalf of a wider group. And that's essential, because what we're talking about when we talk about prejudice in this case, and the majority, by the way, of those hate crimes were racist hate crimes, we're talking about a country which has a history of white supremacy and individuals who believe that they're acting on behalf of those ideals. And so that is distinct from individuals going out and acting out, you know, aleatory manner.
Yeah. Now, you're a Muslim, but
Yes.
you've chosen not to wear the headscarf as consistently as you used to. Why is that?
Why do I no longer wear it as consistently?
Yeah.
I mean, there are many reasons, but one of them is definitely the fact that I got tired in my everyday of being targeted by people who felt that I was fair game for their prejudice. I'd be on the bus and people would make throwaway rude remarks. I've had bottles chucked at me when I'm wearing my headscarf. I've been spat at on the tube. But it's not about me. Every Muslim woman that I know has to think twice about how close she stands to the tube railway lines. She has to think closely about who's behind her in the lift. There's a sense of
Aren't you giving
fear.
in to people who are Islamophobic, then?
Yeah, so I think your question is a very valid one. At what point do you put your personal sanity above your personal security? And frankly, no minority in this country should have to make that choice. But I think there are people making very difficult decisions about what situations they put themselves in, and that is testament to the climate we're in right now.
Okay.
We have Rod Liddell writing in The Spectator that, you know,
he's not here to defend himself, so I don't want to go into too much.
He has written in a very prominent column that he thinks an election
because we can't get a response from it.
on a date when Muslims shouldn't be able to vote.
Let's go to social media, Ria.
Lots of people getting involved online today. So Mark's got in touch to say we are definitely becoming a more hate-filled and intolerant society. When things aren't going well, we look for scapegoats and we blame anybody except ourselves. Dawn on Facebook says stabbings, muggings and acid attacks are also up, and they're far more serious than some of the reported name-calling. Tony thinks there are too many thin-skinned millennials ready to scream hate crime at anyone with a strong opinion that differs from their own. And finally, Andy says, with more categories being added to the hate list, it's obvious that more offences will occur. Let's stop marking our differences and realise we are but one.
Ria, thank you. Rav, what about that comment? Thin-skinned millennials. Can't even say it, but people are just too soft now.
I think we all rolled our eyebrows.
That was a big eye roll, because I think people use that as a mechanism to try and dismiss someone else's experience. You know, I am somebody who's faced a lot of criticism for being a gay Sikh man, and I think too often we allow the big numbers of these statistics to overshadow individual experiences, and once you do that, you kind of lose why this is actually becoming a problem and how we can tackle it rather than the bigger picture.
But we didn't record hate crime in the past. That's the point, isn't it? That people now are recording hate crime and they're becoming too sensitive. That's the criticism.
No one is becoming too sensitive. A crime is a crime and it needs to be tackled in the right way.
I think you have to make a really important distinction between, you know, victims of crime who are absolutely not being overly sensitive and what I think some people are getting at, which is the use of the words hate speech to describe, you know, what could be perfectly legitimate opinions, what might be spicy opinions, but this word is thrown around all the time, and that, you know, that is having a pressure on, you know, that is affecting debate. It's a problem because you're having, you know, police are getting involved in debates about trans issues, in debates about race and things like that, and that's not what we want in a free society.
Okay. Dawn, what's the solution then? Because there are incidents of hate.
Of course there are. I was listening to Jo Cox's sister this morning, Kim Ledbetter, who talks an awful lot of sense on this particular issue, and she was saying, of course I'm very angry, my whole family are very angry, and yes, I am filled with hate about what happened to my sister. However, she goes, the way we have to move forward is to use our feelings and our anger and our passion in a good way and use them for positive means. So, like setting up the Jo Cox situation. So she's used her anger and her hatred to set up the Jo Cox Foundation, which is fighting against all sorts of hate crime.
Miriam, what's the answer? Is education the answer? Where's the balance between punishment and education here?
I think punishment, in many cases, apart from the severe ones where clearly it's necessary, can actually deepen the polarisation that we're talking about. I think actually education is a major part of it. The major pillar for me of the unexamined pillar of our identity in this country is white racial identity. We don't talk about its meaning. We don't talk about its implications. We're quite happy to talk about what does it mean to be a black man in Britain today, what does it mean to be an Asian woman, but what does it mean to be a white man or a white woman in Britain today? And what
really
are you
want to
carrying?
encourage people to have a white identity?
No,
I
I want people to confront the meaning of white racial
Yeah.
identity, which is rooted in white supremacy.
That's a discussion
until we tackle that,
for another day, and perhaps we will have it in the coming weeks.
It will continue to bleed in.
Miriam and everybody, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.